What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to Card Central 365. I'm Brenden Schaeffer, joined by Ethan Hannaford as the Cardinals coming off of a Friday night win over the Dodgers, getting the shutout as Sonny Gray. Fantastic bullpen, did its job, but the Cardinals had more than enough offense to be able to win game one. So we'll get into a little bit of our thoughts on last night. I know Ethan was in the house, and we'll look ahead to Saturday afternoon. Can the Cardinals, A, get the game in? We're always weather report people on this time of year, Ethan. And will the Cardinals be able to overcome the pitching matchup, which I think is definitely one that favors the other side in this one? So we'll get into all that on this edition of Card Central 365 on STL Sports Central. This episode brought to you by Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. And as always, the content here on STL Sports Central is brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Ethan, you were in the building last night. It was a fun one for the Cardinals. 40,000 of your friends were there with you. What did you take away from last night in game one of this series?
Well, first off, I took that my 40,000 friends were having a hoot and hollering time on a Friday night. And I'll say this, I'll give them their kudos as I did last night. It was an hour and 15-minute rain delay, and they still stuck around. I did not expect for it to be that full after that long of a delay. It tells us two things. One, the Dodgers are entertaining and they draw crowds. And two, even despite a down week, the attendance, I know the doubleheader kind of made it screwy, and the weather's been crappy in St. Louis. So you take some of that, you consider some of that a little bit differently. But Cardinals fans are starting to get reinvested again, even despite some of the struggles in the past week, which is exciting, which is encouraging. We've said it multiple times this year. We've said it a lot of times this year. That was a good baseball game last night that the St. Louis Cardinals played from front to back end. Everything about it was, I should say, just about everything about it was clean. You were able to use the long ball effectively, which we know that has been an issue at times for St. Louis. And it's great to see a guy like Pedro Pajes get going, who at times has been quiet offensively this year, especially in the past month. It's always a plus when you're able to get hits back going. Boy, did he smoke that baseball too. I mean, I think he hit it over the bullpen. So that was fun. It was also the first time that I had sat in the crowd in over 2 years, probably closer to 3 years. So pretty good game to do so for. Yeah. It was a lot of fun, like being a part of that crowd atmosphere again and being kind of in the muck of it. Really enjoyed that. But then, I mean, if there's one guy to talk about, and there's more than one, of course, but if there's one that you have to mention and say was the main reason for the performance was Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray was as good as he has been as a St. Louis Cardinal last night. And not to say that he hasn't had better line scores, but when you take into consideration the rain that he had to deal with and having to, for a guy as sharp as he is when it comes to preparation and all of those things, for him to be able to deal with an hour and 15-minute rain delay and go as deep as he did against this Dodgers lineup was really telling that he was on last night. That was the most impressive part of the evening to me, Brendan. And boy, Sonny Gray was good. You needed him to be good because last night, when you looked at the pitching matchups, that was the one you had to win and then hope that you can split one of the next two against Yamamoto and Kershaw. But you had to win last night. Gray did his part. The Bats did their part, and the Cardinals are in the driver's seat to win the series now.
Yeah, you feel really good about the way Sonny Gray pitched. 6 1/3 innings, 8 hits allowed. Scattered them, though. Didn't walk anybody, which helps him be able to scatter those hits. Had 5 strikeouts. It feels like that's the game plan if you're Sonny Gray of what needs to happen against the Dodgers. You can give up 8 hits, but you're not going to give up the dangerous ones. And when you get guys with ducks on the pond, you're able to lock in, lock down, and make sure you execute your pitches to the best of your ability. Sonny Gray was great, and that's the second time in a row. I would have said, and as you said it, like, oh, it's as good as we've seen him as a Cardinal. I thought, man, what we saw from him against the Rangers just 5 days previous was pretty darn good. But I think I like your call on that, Ethan. You consider the circumstances, you consider the rain delay, you consider the opponent. That's pretty impressive. But now you're able to stack 2 in a row, 13 1/3, scoreless over his last 2 starts with 15 strikeouts, allowing only 12 hits and 1 walk. So fewer than a base runner per inning, essentially. for Sonny Gray over his last couple of starts. He was great. I love seeing the contributions from Pedro Pages. You look up and he's got 5 home runs on the season. I know that he's not been a particularly complete player offensively, and there's a lot of still, I feel like, angst from Cardinals fans when they say, oh man, he's the guy at the bottom of the lineup that's just not producing. He makes too many outs, and you just can't afford that. I have consistently disagreed with that sentiment from Cardinals fans. I think what he brings behind the plate is instrumental to the Cardinals' success so far this year. And again, if he's batting down 8th or 9th in your order and he ends the season with 12 homers and an OPS above 600, good enough for me. He really set the tone last night. How many times have we seen Pedro Pages? You might not see his numbers overall and love him, but how many times have we seen this guy be a tone setter for the lineup in some pretty key moments against some really good competition?
Brendan, you know how there's those takes that you hear, those thoughts that you hear, the frustrations of fans at times, and there's just usually like a couple of them that will just like really get you, and you're just like, oh my god, that one makes me so mad.
Like, I have to talk about this for 20 minutes. Yeah.
this is one of them for me from Cardinal fans, is the undervaluing of Pedro Pages and what he has meant to the pitching this year, to the catcher position. I understand people value offense, and they value having the lineup be deep and be deeper. And I understand that people think that Ivan Herrera is a solution in times when the offense has gone through its ruts in the past week, to make him to have him be the catcher and to bench Pedro Pages. I get that from an offensive perspective, because over the past probably month, I would say it hasn't been very good from Pedro Pages at the plate. But the priority of your catcher should not have to be offensive first. Their job is to take care of their guy on the mound, their battery partner. There's a reason they call it the battery, guys. It is the life of the game, right?
Like, I love that.
Right? I mean,
yes.
Come on. I mean, if you are not taking care of your pitcher, then you are setting yourself up for failure. And Sonny Gray talked about it last night, his relationship with Pedro Pages. This is a guy that probably at this time last year wasn't even up in the majors yet, or was just getting up, and we're saying, who's this Pedro Pages guy? It's going to be Contreras and Herrera for the next couple of years. Pedro Pages, you talk about runway, he has completely earned every single opportunity that he's gotten. Who knows what the future looks like for him at this position, right? But this is a guy that brings life to the clubhouse, is fun to be around, and has been since he first got up, and has continued to make adjustments at the plate, I think, from an offensive perspective. But when you look at the defensive comparisons of all three of these guys, it is not close.
Not close. Not remotely close.
Pedro Pages is by far the best option defensively. And if you want the Cardinals as a fan to keep having the success that they are pitching-wise, I'm not saying that 100% of it goes to Pedro Pages. I'm just saying that fans consistently undervalue the importance that a catcher has for their pitching staff. I think that we perhaps having Yadier Molina for 20 years, fans just grew accustomed to that's what was the normal. That was the normal in St. Louis, not the normal everywhere else. So Pedro Pages, the man, he's very undervalued behind the plate, in my opinion. The work that he's doing on a day in and day out basis with this starting rotation, it's been a huge reason for their success. And I'm not even going to say I hope it continues, because I know it's going to continue. Ali Marmol is not going to take him unless he's batting like 150. Maybe then we see him go out. Otherwise, he's not going to go out, because even Ali has talked about and said it publicly that his job should not be offensive first. His job is making sure that the pitching is right, and he's doing a really dang good job of that so far. So I don't see why he's going to be coming out of that position.
Yep, that's kind of the way I see it as well. And the defensive numbers, he's very solid back there, but the eye test as well. Maybe part of the reason you mentioned the Yachty factor, where we just got so used to what it looked like to have great catching behind the plate. And it's so funny, because on the one hand, we talk about it all the freaking time. We never are not talking about how great Yadier Molina is and was behind the plate when he was running things for the Cardinals for the better part of 2 decades. So we talk about it a bunch, but then it's like it goes in one ear and out the other, I guess, because when we talk about different catchers, we don't recognize the standard that Yachty had set to where now you're kind of just expecting that to happen. You're like, no. The reason we talk about Yachty all the time and how great he was is because that's not normal. And so if you appreciate the things that made Yachty great and that really helped out those Cardinals pitchers for all those years, then by that same token, you would have to acknowledge that when the Cardinals make decisions with their catcher position moving forward, that prioritizes those same things. Not saying he's Yachty or Molina, but like he's their closest replica to here's the preparation that goes into it behind the scenes that we don't get to see. That's maybe part of it too. We don't see it with our eyes, the hours of work that goes in to prepare Pedro Pages to be in those positions, to do subtle things that you don't notice during the game necessarily that helps his pitchers out. And it's in the results. It's in the way that those guys pitch. But it's like a lot of things that is nuanced. And again, it's like we set this bar, so we're like, hey, this is what we expect of catchers now. But by the same token, it's funny to turn around and go, I don't know, throw Herrera back there because it means you can get a different DH in your lineup, which, by the way, right now, you don't have a lot. Your bench is no longer teaming with those DH options. Burleson obviously would be a good call against right-handed pitching. Gorman you can put in there against righties, and, we're kind of hit or miss with him. The Cardinals have faced so many lefties recently that it's kind of hard to, take a stand on that regardless. But I do think it's an interesting conversation. But, we're going to continue to see Pedro Pages back there for sure. I liked also, as we get into a little bit more about the offense, the fifth inning. I know you did a whole post-game show last night, Ethan, but I just wanted to mention I couldn't believe what I was seeing from Justin Wroblewski in the fifth inning, and the fact that Dave Roberts just didn't notice. They had one pitching visit to the mound, but I thought somebody was going to get hurt. He was so wild where it was missing arm side, missing way down in the other batter's box. That was crazy to me. Credit to Brendan Donovan, because when you're a hitter in that lineup, I was sitting there going, don't swing at anything. Make him throw you 3 strikes. But eventually he serves one right into the middle of the plate that was able to be the pitch Donovan was looking for to hit it and get some key insurance runs. Wilson getting the home run later. But as you were watching that fifth inning, and then we'll get into a little bit of talk about what's coming up today, what did you notice? The same stuff I was noticing about Wroblewski? It was bizarre to watch, honestly.
Totally. Yeah, it was super weird. And he went back out and he had a good inning after. So I wasn't. It was, I was sitting with Stephen Carey last night, and we were in section 150. We were right behind home plate there. So
humble brag.
Yeah, well, hey, easy now. So, but he told me that he's like, I covered him a little bit in the minors. So he was, that's what he does. He likes to challenge guys on the inner half. But I was like, even and we both recognize this is a level above. I mean, I thought he was going to take Victor Scott's chin off.
That was such a great
when
bunch.
Victor Scott went down, I was
How
like,
did he do that?
He's not going to have a chin anymore. It's just not going to be there. It's
the bat was in the right
going to be
spot.
on the ground. That was so freaking scary. How that ball ended up being fair. Kudos to Victor.
It worked.
Yeah, a little segue. I like seeing him bunt a little more last night in the midst of trying to get something going. Use the speed to your advantage. That side of his game has kind of dropped off since his hitting struggles have begun. But back to Wroblewski. It was concerning there because, like you said, he almost hit Nootbaar. He almost hit Scott.
Nootbaar was not happy.
And then Wynn, I don't remember what happened with Wynn. Oh, Wynn had a ground out, I think, that advanced the runners. And then Brendan Donovan continues to do Brendan Donovan things. Consistency. It's the one word to describe him. And lefty sends that right back up the middle. And obviously there were a couple of big offensive moments, but that was the moment right when because you knew that 2 wasn't going to be enough. You knew 2 wasn't going to be enough to beat the Dodgers. It would have ended up being enough, but in most cases, I should say,
you got to add
it
on.
Wouldn't be enough, right? And so when you're able to double lead like that, all of a sudden, I think you got a little breathing room. You get your Sonny Gray out there, and you can say, "Okay, all right, here we go. Let's keep attacking." Right? It isn't feel probably as nearly of high leverage. Like most lineups 1 through 9 aren't going to feel like high leverage all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'd say it's high leverage all the time with the Dodgers, but pretty dang close, because even the guys that you would consider to be their lesser of bats, like when Tommy Edman bats 8, Michael Conforto bats 7, Rushing is batting 9, great prospect, off to a slow start, but still has a good bat. And then it's right back to the top. So even when those lesser guys are up, the top is right around the corner and they're in mind. So I don't know if there really is such thing as a low leverage at bat during when you're facing the Dodgers. So it makes it that much more challenging. But I have to imagine that when they were able to double that lead, that Sonny Gray was able to probably relax a little bit more and help propel him, through the 6 1/3, the final inning of the third that he threw.
Yeah, I agree. You can't just expect two to hold up in that spot, and it changes that dynamic of the game when you go from a 2-run lead to a 4-run lead. Not like even when you bring the relievers in, and it's just a little bit of a margin for error. You don't have to be perfect. They were
Yes,
with
exactly.
no runs allowed, but definitely good to see. We got a little bit of lineup talk today. Yes, Gorman is in there today. The lineup I'm showing is Nootbaar, Wynn, Donovan, Contreras, Burleson, Herrera, Gorman at third base, Pages, and Victor Scott. Going up against Yoshinobu Yamamoto today, who comes in with a 2.39 ERA. So Pages in there again. Not surprised to see that whatsoever. And he'll be working with Eric Fetty this afternoon. I got to say, Ethan, as we turn our attention a little bit to today's game, tough pitching matchup. Yamamoto, really, really good this year. Fetty has been solid overall, but this feels like a matchup that's difficult because he's walked a ton of batters this season, and the Dodgers are a lineup that if you try to pick around some guys, there are other guys in that lineup that are going to hurt you. As you mentioned, 1 through 9, they've got names that, you got to pay attention to. And I was just looking over the stats a little bit. Not a ton of experience in the lineup against Fetty, but enough. And a lot of guys that when they have seen him, they've done pretty well against him. What's your anticipation for the way the Cardinals kind of pull the rabbit out of the hat today? Because that's the way that it feels to me as we come into this one.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Eric Fetty, I mean, I think the biggest thing is keeping your offense in it, right? Giving your offense a chance, and that's all that you can control. Um, Avoid the long ball, which I know is much easier said than done against this lineup. But if you can keep the ball in the ballpark, I think that you're going to give yourself an okay chance. We know what the top of that lineup, the threat that they are. If you can keep 1 through 5 in the ballpark, I think you're going to. I think you set yourself up for a little bit more success. We Similar to Sonny Gray, we kind of know what we have in Eric Fetty very early in an outing, right? I mean, like you kind of know which version of him you're getting. We've seen a few different versions of him last year. He's the hardest guy, in my opinion, to predict what you're going to get out of him.
Yeah.
But on the other side, you got a Yoshinobu Yamamoto that is coming off of a rough start against the Yankees. Yes, it's the Yankees. I get that. But 3 2/3, 7 hits, 4 earned runs, 3 walks, just 2 strikeouts. So maybe the Cardinals are able to jump off on some of the struggles that he had in his previous outing. Prior to that, he had been excellent. I mean, when you're able to have those numbers in an outing and still have a 2.39 ERA, you're having a pretty good start to the year. So maybe the Cardinals are able to take advantage of some of the adjustments that maybe he's trying to make following that, or maybe it's just that it was an off day and he was playing the Yankees, and the Yankees are pretty dang good. So Eric Fetty, it depends on which version you get of him, but if he can locate the off speed specifically and be careful with that pitch, not leave it over the plate, and leave stuff up, then he's good. I think he has the potential to get through this lineup and to say, okay, like we got through that part with Yamamoto. You just gotta. I think this is the second time the Cardinals are facing Yamamoto. I want to say that they faced him.
I know they've seen him.
I think that they faced him last year on the road. I think to start off the year. I think that he was. That was a 4-game series. He
5 clean
started one of those
innings.
games.
5 shutout innings is what he threw against the Cardinals. The only time that he's faced them. 2 hits allowed. Excuse me.
Okay, gotcha. Well, this is a much more polished version of Yamamoto since then, but it's also a better Cardinals offense than the last time that they saw him. So, let's hope that the Cardinals are able to get to him and can maybe continue some of those struggles that he experienced last week in the Bronx. You got to win, like I said, one of the next 2, and you got Yamamoto today, and you got Kershaw tomorrow. The Cardinals have hit well against good pitching this year. They have against top-end starting pitching. They have found a way. It wasn't long ago that they were able to chase Tarik Skubal out of the game after 5 2/3. So I mean, it's all about plate discipline. It's all about patience. It's all about having a good approach. The Brant Brown method, and that has worked this year in large part for the Cardinals. Let's hope that it continues to work today and that they're able to clinch a series win.
Yeah, I want to ask maybe a controversial question about Clayton Kershaw in just a minute here. But before I do that, if you have thoughts, predictions, opinions on what you're going to see over the next couple of days between the Cardinals and Dodgers, you can look to take advantage of that with DraftKings Pick 6, as DraftKings Pick 6 is a great way to take your sports predictions and opinions and, put your money where your mouth is, essentially. You can download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports. For new customers, you play $5 and you get $50 in Pick 6 credits. It's just that easy. You download that DraftKings Pick 6 app. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
So I teased that I had a controversial thought on Kershaw, and I'm going to give you that, and then we'll go through some of the recent comments, folks asking about Liberatore, a couple of other comments that we want to get into. Kershaw was originally not scheduled to pitch in this series. It would have been Dustin May going for the Dodgers on Sunday. Now the Dodgers have made a change to where Kershaw will go tomorrow. May will be pushed to Monday, so he's no longer the Cardinals' problem. The Cardinals recently have been facing a lot of lefties, and to the chagrin of maybe some in our comment section, that has meant more Ryan Valade than you probably ever expected to see in your life. We could talk about that here in a minute. But would you say that your preference, Ethan, would have been to face Dustin May, or do you want your crack at Kershaw? Because the couple of lefty performances the Cardinals have had recently, last night did well against Wrobleski. They got to Cole Reagans. Pick your poison. Would you have rather seen May, or are you looking forward to Kershaw? I'm thinking from a competitive standpoint, if you're the Cardinals, what do you think they would have honestly preferred?
It's a good question. Clayton Kershaw isn't the Clayton Kershaw of old, but we know
5
it doesn't.
ERA.
But I was going to say, but also it doesn't. And we've seen this in the past and times, in recent seasons when he's struggled. Like, it doesn't take much for him to unlock that either.
Yeah.
So like, even if Clayton Kershaw, with the struggles that he's had, went out there and he threw 6 innings of 1-run ball, like, would that be frustrating? Sure. But like, would it surprise me? No, because like that Clayton Kershaw just has that ability, even in his, as he's getting up there in age, to be able to just turn it on like that at times. He's going to have those outings this year. So I think that I would probably lean towards Kershaw because of the Cardinals' ability to hit him in recent years. I mean, I'm not even going back to some of, they played yesterday on the video board, Matt Adams, like 7th inning, 3-run bomb. Like,
great time.
When you look at the majority of like those early outings, like Kershaw like was pretty good in a lot of them. It just the Cardinals were able to find a way to get a hold of him in the big moment or something, right? So in large part, Kershaw has had a lot of historic success, but in more in the recent last couple of years, Cardinals have been able to get to him a couple of times. So, my hope, right, is that the Cardinals are able to continue having some of the recent historic success that they have against him. It's a guy that, as you mentioned, is towards the tail end of his career, is off to a rough start in 2025. Dustin May, I haven't looked at his numbers yet. Haven't had to because he's not pitching now. So
he's a 4.3 ERA, but good
okay. So
numbers.
Younger guy, probably a little bit more zip to his stuff at this point in his career than Kershaw does. I would be curious to look at the righty lefty splits of the team as a whole, and if they're hitting a specific side better. I would be curious to do that, because I think one of the things that you have to consider is, the Cardinals are able to platoon so much, right, that it probably depends on, okay, like, how is this righty hitting, like going through and hitting during this stretch? How is this lefty going through hitting during this stretch? So it probably has to do some with that. I'll try to get that pulled up here in just a second. But
yeah, I was trying to do it, but MLB.com is like totally broken.
I'll get it on here in a second on StatHead. But I think I'm okay. I'm very okay facing Clayton Kershaw. Facing Clayton Kershaw at this point in his career, like, is a very like winnable game in my opinion. So I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like you hate to say, "Oh, I'm looking forward to it," because then that's right the moment that you kind of end up
Right.
regretting your words because, like you said, it doesn't take a lot for him to unlock it necessarily. It looks like 685 is the OPS against lefties this year for the Cardinals, so I'm going to assume they've been better against righties. That's still middle of the pack in baseball, 13th in the league. They're 7th in baseball in OPS against righties with a 741. So yeah, for as many times as you can think about them doing well against a lefty, then you can go back to the other day where Noah Cameron shut him down. So I'm sure there's plenty of days where that has happened as well. Getting to a little bit of last night. Yep, Steven Matz did look good again. A couple of strikeouts in the 9th inning. They're going to need him. They're going to need him to be the guy that he was, and not the guy that we were worried he was turning back into with a couple of rocky outings. But he looked sharp again for sure. We did spend a lot of time talking about Pages' defense. Chewy mentions we need defense today, especially because of how much of a contact pitcher Fetty is. So I would agree with that, and I think you've got a pretty good defensive lineup out there, although it is going to be interesting, Ethan, to see Gorman at third base with Arenado getting a day off here in this series. Not sure what his efforts looked like against Yamamoto the last time through, but rarely do we see Arenado out of the lineup, and this might be a spot where lefty Kershaw's coming tomorrow. They faced a bunch of lefties, so you didn't want to do it recently. That's probably something where Ollie might have been looking to get him a day, and then you just keep playing all the lefties, and you're like, well, you're not going to sit him against a lefty. So this might have just been the best spot to do that. Burleson in right field, just something to keep a note of. I don't think that's the Cardinals' most favorite preference in terms of defensive alignment, but we'll see what this ends up looking like from a defensive perspective today. Valade, we got some Valade questions. Your thoughts on Valade being suddenly an everyday guy for the Cardinals? Like, on paper, I get it. You want to play the platoon splits, but I got to the point last night where I'm like, okay, we've probably seen enough of that. I would want to see Burleson. I saw another comment in here, play Burley against Kershaw. Look, Matt Carpenter against Clayton Kershaw was always a fun time, and to learn that you've got another lefty that can conquer Kershaw, you've got to play those lefties against Kershaw. Burleson might be kind of that Matt Carpenter archetype where he might be able to get something done against that tough lefty. What are your thoughts, though, Ethan, on Ryan Valade, the why maybe behind what he's been in there as often as he's been, and sort of what you've seen and what you expect to see going forward?
Well, first, quickly, let me address Nolan Gorman at third base, because I think why it makes sense in my mind, right, is that, Ollie said that recently on the Gas House Gang, he would have preferred to have Gorman in there more during the month of May. It was just kind of like the odd man out. Plus, the off days worked out perfectly to where they could still use, their A team in pretty much every single game because they had so many off days. Not the case in the month of June. Guys are going to need off days, and as a result, hopefully, that means that Nolan Gorman is going to get a few more opportunities. And in this case, it's going to maybe be in different spots. Maybe it's designated hitter one night. Maybe it's second one night. But tonight it's at third base. You said Nolan Arenado doesn't take a lot of off days. You're right. In a month where it is a lot of baseball and not a lot of rest, this is going to happen a time or two. So that makes sense in my mind. So that's the first thing. As far as Ryan Valade goes, it's one thing in my mind if he's having success, if he has historic success, right? Like, that tells you, okay, this is going to help contribute, But Ryan Valade is 0 for probably his last 35 now at the major league level, or close to that. He hasn't really had a lot of productive at-bats in his few starts with the Cardinals now. I understand, when it comes to Nolan Gorman, especially now, his confidence is probably in such a shaky spot because of the way that they've used him. Part of that's on the Cardinals. Part of it's on Nolan Gorman.
And part of it's just the nature of the beast, because
part of
Arenado's
it's
here.
Reality of this is how baseball goes. Yeah, totally. Part of, because I think the easy thing is okay, could it possibly get worse if you just throw him in there against a lefty one night? And I think that the mindset from the Cardinals is yes, it could, because you could shake his confidence even more in a time when it's probably already spotty. and you throw him against a lefty, and all of a sudden he's 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. Like, that's not helping anything. The alternative to that is right, like, but at least he's up there at the plate. At least you're able to say like he got his swings. Clearly, the Cardinals care more about him than that to just simply say that. Because I think if it was just as simple as that, like maybe they're playing him in against a lefty, and the last 3 games were against lefty starters, and he had 1 pitch hit at bat against a righty late in the games. Like, I know his numbers against lefties aren't good, but like, what do you have to lose in a situation? Like, is Ryan? I know he provides much more defensive upside. Your defensive lineup is better when Ryan Valade is in there in right field compared to when Nolan Gorman is at second, but I don't know. I would have preferred to at least see him in one of those 3 starts against lefties. I know it's not going to be a typical thing, but in a time when you said, Jordan Walker is on the IL, so as a result, hopefully Gorman is going to get more opportunities. We said that the opportunities for Gorman were going to come based around injuries from other guys. That's how it was going to look. And I bad timing because of lefties, but all of a sudden, like half of Walker's time on the IL is up. And this window that you said was going to be a chance for you to get an extended look at Nolan Gorman is half over. I understand the way that the Cardinals have gone about it, but it's one of the few times where I'm actually saying, I think that I'm leaning towards the other way. I think this makes more sense in this specific situation.
So that's interesting. I don't have any problem with them not playing Nolan Gorman. I feel like we've seen like they've sprinkled in chances earlier in the year, and that's not like a full runway, but there have been a couple of times where they've let him take those at bats against lefties. Remember the Gregory Soto at bat was a yike and a half. I mean, that was yikes. Those guys that can throw off speed at him, Gorman just flails at it. And you're right. I think it's a combo of, it'll shake his confidence further. What's going to happen at this point when he's facing a lefty. Like, I guess that's not fair because you can't say that if he's not ever getting the chance to start in those spots, but it just feels like from a, don't shake his confidence perspective, from a, you're not going to get any actual production perspective. Like, why bother?
But like, what are you getting from Ryan Valade? So does it become a defensive thing then? Like, that's the question.
So it's partially a defensive thing because as much as Gorman's like okay at second, I don't sense that they're like over the moon about his defense.
Sure, no, I get that,
and I don't know what Valade is in right field either. So what I was going to continue with is, Gorman wouldn't be my choice. I would have Burleson in right field, even though that's a downgrade compared to Valade or anybody defensively in right field, and maybe like that speaks to just how much the Cardinals do not, because they might be like kind of lukewarm on Gorman defensively. They do not consider Burley an outfielder. The fact that he gets to be in the outfield as often as he has been speaks to his bat and how much they like it, and just the circumstances. But enough with the Valade thing. Like, I get it because here's my thought. Here's my thought is that people are like, well, why didn't somebody else come up? Well, Walker's a righty. They brought up a righty. That's like for like. That's the way they like to do it. Barrerero is also a righty that could play the outfield, though, if you wanted to have him be prioritized for some of those spots. I personally don't. I'm not super high on him either. Like the bench that we really thought, I think yes, because I think defensively he's probably just a better athlete. Don't love his instincts in the outfield though either. Like remember the start he had in center field where it was adventurous every time they hit a ball his way. It's like Barrerero is a nice player to have around in theory. It feels like, and then when you have him, when you think about actually putting him into those spots, you go, well, like you find reasons to talk yourself out of it. So I'm understanding of that. Here's why with Valade, and this might not be like captain of the Ryan Valade fan club, but when you have a guy that feels like a quad A type of player, and you have an outfielder that you just called up from AA to AAA and Nathan Church, like that's one fewer spot that anybody in that Memphis outfield is going to get to have. It might be a one-way trip for Ryan Valade. Like they're going to need a 40-man spot at some point. And so what do you do with those guys that are kind of on that line between AAA and big leagues? You play them, and when there's no better opportunity to play him, like if Valade goes 6 for 8 this week against lefties, you're like, holy crap, we learned something about this guy. Is it fair that the runway for a player can be 10 at bats and that's it? Nah, whatever. It's not really about equity and fairness, though. It's like, well, you're not a prospect. You have to. It's just what it is. Certain guys have draft capital, they have prospect capital, and they get more opportunities than others. If it goes this way for Ryan Valade, where you got, man, how many baseball players out there would kill for 3 starts in a week against the opposite-handedness of what they are as a batter? And it's like, this is your shot. And I hate to, kind of make it such a life or death for Ryan Valade's career, but like this might have been a real great chance, and he didn't really show much. And so for me, when you see Kershaw on Sunday, it's not Valade out there, it's anybody else. Because again,
so.
he's not part of the runway stuff. Like it's an easy kind of punching bag thing if you're the Cardinals. I understand why they tried it for a minute there. Probably wouldn't have done it 3 times. Maybe would have capped it at 2. It is what it is. I just think trust what it says about what the team believes about certain players. Like, well, why don't they do this? Clearly, they don't think very much of that guy. Like Barrerero, I don't think they really are eager to put him into the outfield. Otherwise, they'd have done it. And look, it's not to say they won't do it again, but those daily conversations, I think you can read between the lines on the attributes that we know to be true of all these different players and why they do or don't get their various opportunities. 100%. For the ones that do, it's because their other thing that they do well is overcoming the thing that's a deficit. Burleson playing right field, he bats well enough to overcome what they think about his defense. Right. But where's, the upside for Valade? Probably not there. For me, it wouldn't be Gorman, it would be Burleson, and I would just kind of live with the outfield defense. But it's funny, like, because I think if you had like a chart of trying to like put a number to all of the values of these players that would merit consideration for these spots in the lineup with Jordan Walker out, I think it would actually be kind of close. Maybe Ollie would disagree because he's picked Valade every single time, but it might be one of those two where, all right, let's see this guy for a little bit because we just called up Nathan Church and he might be taking a spot in AAA, even though Koperniak has had a much lesser season in the minors than Valade. Look, the Cardinals would probably love nothing more than if they needed a 40-man spot, they pass him through waivers and get to keep him and send him back down there when the time comes. They're not just trying to boot him out. He's had good numbers in AAA, but good numbers in AAA earn you an opportunity in the big leagues. It might be a brief one if you don't perform in that opportunity. And sort of that's like my 10-minute spiel. We've talked a lot about Ryan Valade at this point, but it is kind of an oddity because I think there were Cardinals fans who a week ago never heard of this person in their life, and then he's started in right field almost every game this week for the Cardinals. And so that's just kind of the nature of it. Understand your thought on Gorman there, Ethan. I just think it's tricky. It's kind of what it is right now for him.
A couple of things. People asking why not bring up Ciani. I think it's because they saw that there was a lot of lefties that they're going to be throwing, so they wanted an extra righty in the lineup. So that's probably why they didn't bring up.
I would have done that because his defense is great, and so I just said screw it. Yeah. I don't care I would have. Now knowing what we know, Sajasi would have been an easy guy to bring up for 5 or 6 days. That's
the one. That's the one for me. That's the one for me because if it's Sajasi, then you have the right-handed bat. It's an easy clear. Like the reason he's not up right now is because they don't want him to be Trace Barrerero. Yeah. I understand that. Like if he was on this line on this roster, he would be Trace Barrerero, and he would never be playing. Maybe he'd be getting a few more at bats because I like his bat a little bit more. So maybe he'd get a few more pinch hit opportunities, but there wouldn't be many opportunities for him. That way you plug him at second base and moves Donovan to left, Newbar to right. That sets you up better everywhere. Yep. That's the one that I was kind of scratching my head.
Here's why not.
Why?
Here's why not. Reagan's wasn't even on the roster at the time. So were you sure you were going to face him as a lefty? You have a doubleheader that changes some things. Kershaw has been added in. There was a world in which they're facing 2 lefties all week instead of 4 or 5.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Tough to anticipate. I get in defense of the Cardinals. I agree with you. If they would have known what exactly the way that their days would play out and they could go back in time and change it, I would have to imagine Sajasi would be because they had to make a 40-man move to bring Valade on.
That doesn't make an argument that Valade over Sajasi. It makes an argument Ciani over Sajasi, right? Like I don't understand Valade in this case really at all.
I get it, and you're right. Like if you can make the case that if they didn't know as many lefties were going to be in there, why the righty Valade? I think it's timing. Like the fact that Church was coming up, it's just one of those where sometimes throughout a season. How many Cardinals have there been over the past decade that have been here for a week? And you're like, oh, yeah, remember that guy? There's a moment in time where as an organization, you go, hey, if not now, why is he even in the organization? Let's give him this shot and see, because you know what? His numbers at Memphis are really good. And so you give him that mini shot and then you see what you needed to see. And that is my prediction on the way this goes. Rarely am I going to tell you, I don't know if this guy's long for the roster, but you can sort of see the way that would play out. The one thing I would add, though, and amend from your previous comments, I don't think this is halfway through the Jordan Walker absence. I don't think we see him for a while. The fact that I mean, it could be wrong, but when they ramped him back up to swing, he was still experiencing pain. That feels very Tommy Edman-y with the wrist. I don't know that. I'm not going to say it's going to be all year for Walker.
When was that? When did he start taking swings? I must have missed that.
It was a few days ago. Where they said he was still experiencing pain. It was during the homestand, but I don't know that means long term, but I think it means more than 10 days. Right.
The way that they advertised that, I guess I took it as Jordan Walker doesn't need to be on the IL, but because we need the extra spot, we're going to put him there. That's what I took that as.
Are you saying originally, though?
What'd you say?
Are you saying originally when they put him on?
Yes.
The IL?
Yes.
And that may have been, what I'm saying is he took a couple days off and then took some swings, and they're like, yeah, there's still some pain and discomfort here, which to me means you might be a little bit more careful on that.
That might change things. I did not know that. I hadn't heard that, so I wasn't aware.
Yeah. So, and like, this is not me saying, oh, it's Tommy Edman, here comes the surgery. I just hate that we saw that happen with Tommy Edman, and then still I hate the wrist thing. Anytime it's a wrist, you're like, I don't know. Because like, what does it tell you? He's been playing through it and just trying to manage it, and it got to the point where it wasn't manageable. He got a cortisone shot. Like, they're just trying to figure it out. I hope Walker's back sooner than later because he had been turning a corner. But that's the other part is like, I don't know if it'll just be a minimum stay. I hope I'm wrong.
Well, then that maybe it's probably not for today, but then you have that eventually may bring up the next question, right? So which is, what is the long-term solution there? Right. And I don't know if they feel great with it being Burleson, but if he keeps swinging the way he is, maybe maybe it's a more of a platoon situation. Maybe this is where Sajasi comes up. Maybe you see Siani. So this is right where eventually the conversation is going to happen of, okay, then who becomes the long-term right fielder, or does it become a situation right where this is where Nolan Gorman gets his extended period eventually? And you shift everyone. Donnie goes to left, Newt goes to right, and then you give Gorman, a couple of weeks there. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it was 2 days ago that he got the cortisone shot. I believe it was just to, try to alleviate the discomfort there. And so probably before he comes back, there will be enough time off that it might be a rehab stint. I think we'll see. Adam going very doom and gloom on us on this Saturday morning. I don't think that's the case with Walker, that we'll never see him again. I certainly hope that is not the case, but I do think, it's not long-term like what happens to right field, but this is a mini runway for, I agree, it would be Nolan Gorman if they would just play some damn right-handers. That would be what Ollie would do. Gorman will not be out of the lineup against a right-hander again until Walker comes back. You won't see him not in the lineup. He will, my prediction, every day, unless Walker is out for multiple months, you will see Gorman in the lineup against every single right-hander that the Cardinals face. That's my prediction, because I think it's what they would have done this week. So,
right, yeah, no, that's it. And the last thing I'll say here real quick, just going back to the platoon splits, because I was like, all right, I want to see where they compare real quick in the majors against right-handed pitching this year. The Cardinals, a .265 batting average, is third in baseball, and their team OPS is seventh in baseball. Against left-handed pitching this year, the Cardinals, a .240 batting average, is 13th in baseball, and the OPS is also 13th in baseball. So they're still top half of baseball either way, but they are one of the best in baseball this year against right-handed pitching, or when they have those majority lefties in the lineup.
And teams perform generally better against right-handed pitching, it seems, than they do against left-handed pitching. It's more of the oddity, and so the numbers across the league are reflected in that as well. Well, we had a lot of fun here. 45 minutes of Cardinals talk on a Saturday morning. You can't hardly beat that. Let's all do the rain dance and hope that it stays away for this afternoon's game. Eric Fetty, Yamamoto going for the Dodgers. We'll see if Eric Fetty can keep Shohei Ohtani from parking one in the seats. You figure a trip to St. Louis, Ohtani.
I'm already radar watching. I've
been doing it too. And what I saw earlier was actually kind of surprisingly encouraging, where big old storm, and then it kind of splits into around the St. Louis area to where you might get away with it. I'm going to do one last radar update here. We'll get some.
It looks like 140. 1 by 140. It is completely gone.
it clears out, and then as long as you can get it by, it kind of starts to dissipate. So we'll trust the radar. That burned me on Wednesday when I was thinking, oh, they're going to play, because all day the radar said, it's going to be cleared out by 6:30, 7 o'clock, and it just kept going backward and backward and backward, and lo and behold, driving home from somewhere at 8:30, 9 o'clock, it was still, raining. So we'll see. Cardinals fans, stay tuned to all the content here on STL Sports Central. If you enjoy Cardinals content, like on an everyday basis, we're your buddies for that. We're going to be here every day, 365 days a year, with Card Central 365, with the Card Central post-game shows that'll come later on this afternoon. Hit the subscribe button Ethan is so aptly pointing to. This has been Card Central 365, powered by Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. And, of course, all content on STL Sports Central is brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours. We'll see you later on this afternoon, hopefully after a Cardinal winner against the Dodgers. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll talk to you next time on the channel.